Hi everyone, I'm Sophie from Cornwall Heritage Trust. I wanted to talk to you a bit about who we are, because we are a small independent charity based in Cornwall, and we are quite far away from Cornwall right now. So we protect 16 of Cornwall's most important ancient sites, landscapes and monuments. We rescue historic sites across Cornwall. We've recently bought Tregonning Hill. The year before we took care of an ancient holy well, and it's constantly growing. Generally, these are either on the open market or we're saving heritage sites at risk. So a bit about what we do. We don't just have sites, we also protect the intangible heritage of Cornwall, and that's Cornish language, music and dance. And we do that by providing funding to schools to visit Cornwall's historic places, and we've invested, been able to support about 25,000 Cornish school children to access historic sites. We also host community events. We have over 170 acres that we look after, and a lot of our sites are areas of special scientific interest and part of the World Heritage Sites. So we look after 60 habitats for protected and rare and endangered species. So that's just a bit about what we do. So I'm here to talk about our work with Carefree. So Carefree is a charity that supports children in care and care leavers. We were introduced to Carefree through the culture card, because I always think it's really interesting when you talk about partnerships, how that partnership came to be. So culture card is a card that gives free access to cultural places for young people who are care experienced plus a guest. And that's to ensure there's no cost barrier to access in Cornwall. And that is a scheme that is administered by Cornwall Council and Carefree. So I signed us up for Culture Card in 2022, and it really launched a collaborative approach to how do we get care experienced children in Cornwall, which is an incredibly rural area, accessing these sites where there is usually a bit of a threshold anxiety there. It's how do you make them feel empowered and have that sense of pride and place and access to green space and heritage spaces. So when we signed up, I went and did a workshop with them, introduced them to one of the sites, and all we did on that workshop was a bit of art, of historic landscape art, and then we just went and they played football on top of a hill fort. It was really, really, really lovely, and it really kind of sparked for Carefree and for me at Cornwall Heritage Trust. There's something here that is something that we can offer these young people that can really bolster them, and let's explore that more in our relationship. So then we applied to the Cornwall Community Foundation's Integrated Care Board funding, inspired, I have to say, by Wessex Archaeology's really amazing Heritage Feel-Good Pack. We wanted to do something along those lines with Carefree, with the young people, and recognising that the heritage sites that we looked after are actually an incredible asset for supporting the well-being of young people. So what we wanted to achieve really is a series of pop-up days over the summer holidays with Carefree. We wanted to test out creative activities for heritage well-being, which would then inform what we produced in our own kind of heritage pack, or Lowenna pack. Lowenna, by the way, meaning happy in the Cornish language. So what we did is a series of activities very much focused on using heritage sites, and Caroline will explain more about that in a second. But the end result is we wanted to create this heritage book that we could offer out to groups like Carefree, where they could do self-led activities on heritage sites without necessarily needing an archaeologist or a historian to guide them or lead them, to having those kind of inspirational moments and little hints of what to do when you're up at a heritage site and you want to engage, prompts to help you. And I'll move on to Caroline and tell you a bit more about how we did that.
Thank you. So the next few slides actually is an opportunity to take you on a very brief field trip to 3 of our heritage sites that we care for in Cornwall, and just to share our story of our work with Carefree in these 3 pop-up days. So just the context of where we went, Trephry Viaduct and the Trephry Valley, it's a wonderful spot to walk and explore, and there's some great evidence of Cornwall's industrial heritage lurking, but really a sense also that nature has very much reclaimed the space. So an easy choice to choose for one of our sites to engage young people with green space and to hopefully encourage them to engage and explore and enjoy our heritage sites. We also took a group to Bodmin Moor, the Hurlers, which are actually 3 stone circles. You can see 2 in the picture. And again, really different, unique landscapes that we have the joy of caring for and being able to engage people with. And we also went to a hill fort. You mentioned a hill fort earlier, which on a lovely day, you can get some amazing views, but that is very weather dependent. And our 3 pop-up days were just us really exploring the work with Care3, and it's something that we're very pleased to say we've learnt from, and we'll share that learning with you as well. And we've also got a project starting after Easter, which we're hoping to really learn a lot more from as well. So our pop-up days, the first one, we had 3 different groups, which created some interesting reflections for us in terms of how we really try to really gain valuable feedback from the groups, but we'll share that in a moment. Our first group was an older group of care leavers. So these young people are from 18 to 25, and they're still supported with Care3. And they came for a day at Trephry. And the idea was to, because this was an older age group, to give them an opportunity to really be, to some extent, self-led. But with that, to have some prompts and some activities. But from my background in education and teaching, it was really exciting and enjoyable actually to participate in a project where it wasn't target-led and outcomes-led. It was really just about providing an opportunity for young people to come and explore their local environment. And these young people possibly don't access these places. And Sophie said, you know, our sites are all free to access, and in theory, that makes them accessible. But if you know Cornwall and the rural nature of Cornwall, there are other barriers to accessibility of these sites. And a large number of the groups that visited the sites, this was their first experience in these places. And it was all about making them welcoming and, you know, friendly experiences. We provided a scavenger hunt, and it wasn't a prescriptive you need to go and find. There were sort of prompts and suggestions, and when you walk around this valley, there are natural places that you just are drawn to, that you want to stop, that you just want to explore. And we took a very sort of sensory approach to all of these workshops, because we firmly believe that we don't know the context of the young people we're working with, their abilities or their background, and that was something that would make it really accessible. So we encouraged them to have sensory exploration, to look at things, to listen to things. And it's based on mindfulness approaches. It's based on ideas of forest bathing, sort of Japanese art of forest bathing. And just also, as Sophie had mentioned earlier, the pack we'd come across from Wessex Archaeology. We wanted to create some resources to trial that we could put together for Cornwall's archaeology and heritage. We've invested in some Polaroid cameras. I'm going to absolutely say they are a great resource that we've used with many, many different groups, not just Care3. And this was also a deliberate act of trying to slow young people down, to actually encourage them to be present. And the process of the Polaroid camera takes about 4 sort of movements where you watch the evolution of that picture. And actually they really engage, as you can see from the photo in the bottom left, whether they were talking together or just looking themselves and just appreciating the green space, the nature, and at later parts of where we were, the industrial heritage as well. And it prompted discussion over lunch, and they shared their photos of their favourite spots. At the Hurlers, we had a younger age group, so very much my background in secondary schools and teaching. I wasn't too fazed by a group of 11 to 17-year-olds, but again, probably children that might well be quite challenging in the context of a classroom environment. And again, it was about the opportunity to engage, and it wasn't about what they actually produced at the end of the workshop. But actually, it was one of my favourite sessions, and just watching the confidence and the engagement of the young people steadily over the few hours that we were together. We did a sensory exploration of the hurlers, encouraging them like explorers to map things that they could see, maybe to think about textures, the standing stones, taking textures onto their map, or to think about the colours of the landscape. We started with a soundscape, which was a really interesting activity given the conditions that we had, with the wind really howling around us. But we sat in a circle inside one of the stone circles, and with a paper plate, they were encouraged to map out the sounds that they could hear in front, behind, to the side, and just to give them that sense of sensory exploration, because it's possibly something they hadn't really participated in before. And after lunch, we gave them pebbles to decorate, to make theirs, and encouraged them to go and find a spot, a favourite spot that they had found, or just somewhere to hide, turning their maps into a treasure map. And oh my goodness, we couldn't stop them. They were hiding and hiding them again, and we didn't get on to the other things that we had planned. And again, it's that importance of just going with the things that work well sometimes and not sticking to your plan. And then our final pop-up day was at Castle and Dinas, an Iron Age hill fort, where we had, again, an older group, but interesting context here. So these are unaccompanied minors seeking asylum. And this was one I think probably I was most anxious myself about. But again, you can see from that photo, you know, great fun. I call this the fire and food experience. And, you know, I'd only recently started work with Cornwall Heritage Trust, and I kept going home pinching myself about what fun I was having. But again, each of the activities, we provided an icebreaker. So the soundscape activity, here it was fire lighting. With the first one that I mentioned, we got them to make a frame with sticks. So it's sort of just giving them a chance to just sort of settle into where they are, and possibly also to get to know each other as well as us. But this was great because they brought food, vegetables, which were then prepped by them, and we got the fire going. We went off for a walk and a talk and an exploration and taking photos again, and then we came back and they made bread and churned butter, and what a fantastic lunch we enjoyed. So that was great. We think food is the key to many things, as you'll see in a moment. We got verbal feedback with all of the groups, and we got feedback from the support workers. We only asked one group, and on reflection, I wished we'd actually perhaps thought about the evaluation side with all of those groups a little bit more, but we asked for feedback from the group at the Hurlers, who wrote down their, you love this one, their WWW, it's very teacher speak now, their what went wells and their EBIs, even better if. And I'm really pleased to share their what went wells. The EBIs were not under our control, and it was mostly about the weather. But little wins for the young people who all sort of recognised enjoyment, which was great because we wanted to engage, we wanted them to explore, and we wanted them to enjoy heritage and to feel that this was something that was for them. You know, it's a great Cornish expression, it's one and all. But if we are going, and I think Cornwall Heritage Trust is very much about preserving our heritage, and that also means engaging, you know, people and communities with that. And this is, you know, again, really exciting to see that they valued what we'd provided, and also an opportunity to actually, to some extent, take risks and be places that, you know, were not very maybe comfortable for them. Connecting with nature really helps me, and there was so much of that. I liked this, I liked that, I enjoyed this. So what did we learn? I think working in partnerships, so Carefree are an incredibly great charity to work with, and they support their young people really well. So it made it a really positive first intro into doing this. But there's always reflections, and we thought we'd anticipated some of those. So we mentioned about our sites being free to access, but issues of accessibility. So we provided funding to help with their transport and their food, thinking that removes barriers. But obviously, other barriers are there as well. And one of the obvious things was actually one of the 11 to 17-year-olds who really held back for most of the morning. He said he was tired, he hadn't slept well. He also arrived in new trainers. He wasn't equipped for stomping along Bodmin Moor, and it made us reflect on the sort of practical needs of things like investing in waterproofs and footwear, and we're launching a Youth Rangers programme, so we've been able to get some kit and equipment. Later learning from some further training with Carefree actually highlighted something we hadn't thought about at the time, but we've now embedded into our practice in terms of really trying to sort of be inclusive in the Red Box project, and just really practical needs sometimes of these communities we work with and the young people who actually often, you know, don't access things because of reasons that can, you know, very easily perhaps be rectified and overcome. So we always have a joke that we mention toilets quite a lot, so why be different? When we do have events, we have to have portaloos, and we now have a red box to overcome that problem. Thank you. Yeah, this is it. This is our legacy slide. So we are putting together some resources now that came from those pop-up days with sensory exploration. So we're pleased that that's soon to go to print. And we're also very pleased that Carefree have now organised some more workshops with us, both pop-up days again in the summer, residential work, and also a 10-week project. So hopefully that'll be real co-creation because we'll have more time to reflect and evaluate with them. Okay, right. Thank you.